And she said, I just don't want to be with him anymore. And I said, why? And she said, he just doesn't sexually excite me. Well, I've seen the videos of you when you were a rock star and there were massive audiences you were entertaining. And so in there, he talks about like sex clubs and swinging and all that kind of stuff.
That's golden right there. Golden.
I know I'm screwed up. Everybody on the planet's screwed up. And I want somebody who's aware of my being a screw up. We talk about both body, mind, heart, and soul.
Dr. Joe Beam is a friend, sexologist, marriage expert, and founder of MarriageHelper.com. He's spoken to millions worldwide, wrote several books, and more importantly, saved thousands of marriages.
The more orgasms you have, the better able you are to handle stress. About the difference in good sex and great sex.
Okay. Let's find out. Do you want to build a truly extraordinary life, what we call an exponential life? My weekly newsletter brings you insights, stories, expert conversations, my favorite books and podcasts every Sunday. Subscribers get exclusive access to my monthly group coaching webinars, all for free. And for the cost of a latte a month, you can help support our work and access our full archives. Subscribe at christianrayflores.com. And how does sex, relationships, marriage factor in career, calling, having impact of the world? That's the umbrella question. And then we can go down into any rabbit hole that we discover along the way. How about that? Does that sound like a plan?
Sounds good to me, sir. Well, I remember once, I can't even remember where I was. It was Ackworth, Georgia. And in Ackworth, Georgia, this guy was talking to, I mean, he was obviously extremely successful. I think his shoes cost more than my car. I mean, This guy had made a ton of money. And I was talking to him about his success. And he said, I have everything in life I want except one thing. And I said, what's that? He said, my family. I sacrificed my wife and my children for my career. I was never there for them. And finally, they just had no relationship with me whatsoever. My wife divorced me and left me, and now I'm all alone. And then he said, interestingly, this: I would give up all my success to be able to have a relationship with my wife and my children. And so, as you and I both know, Christian, life is a lot more than about money, fame, prestige, position, power. All those things are, I love to be successful as well. I really do. But life is much more involved than that, and has to have a balance. And when we talk about balance, where we work, we talk about both body, mind, heart, and soul. As a matter of fact, we have an acronym for it. We call it PIES. P-I-E-S. P for physical, I for intellectual, E for emotional, and S for spiritual. So body, mind, heart, and soul, but that doesn't spell anything, so we said PIES. And that's why it's important in these relationships. There are all kinds of good things we can say about that, but yes, if you're going to be a true success in life, it's going to be a well-rounded success.
What you said about your friend, it seems to be like a classic story of a successful person.
I've actually witnessed that with many people over the years, not the exact same story, but very close. When you start looking at the needs that really exist within a human being, where they find peace, because what we ultimately figure out is this: that's what everybody's looking for. I want to be loved, but I also want to feel peace inside. And so that's where anxiety comes from. I don't have peace because that may not work, or that might do like I expect it to, or whatever it might be. And for there to be that kind of love, peace, basically there are three things we need. And Christian, these three words come out of the addiction world. In other words, people who are struggling with addiction, if you're going to help them get out of it, you're going to need these three things. Now, I'm not talking about money being an addiction, although it could be, but just as we lead into talking more about sex, for example, the first is that I need to feel that I am seen, that I have value, that I matter. And the second is I need to feel secure. And secure means I need to believe that you're going to be there with me no matter what. My good days, my bad days, my in-between days. That some days you might be mad at me, some days you might not be very happy with me, but at least you're still going to be with me because you believe in me. And then the last one, interestingly, is soothed. You're probably not old enough to remember, but back in the day, Dolly Parton had a variety show on television. And the very first song she sang was Someone to Watch Over Me. And the critics went, wow, Dolly Parton needing somebody to watch over her? Yeah, everybody needs that. I need to feel secure. I need to feel seen. And sometimes I need somebody who is just going to take care of me. Now, in my business, I can't have that person, because if I show my weaknesses, then people begin to lose confidence in me, etc. So where can I show my weakness? Where can I show where I am afraid? Where can I tell somebody about the fact that I think maybe I'm operating above my level, whatever it might be? And that's going to be in a very close relationship, either a deep, deep friendship, it could happen there, or more likely going to happen in a marriage. So to give you a quick example, one of my buddies, by the time he was 18, his mom had been married 12 times. And so what would happen is that that one would be gone, and she'd say, "You're the man of the house." Then there'd be another guy, and she'd say, "Well, now you're a little boy." Oh, another man, now you're, et cetera, back and forth and back and forth. And now, even though he's 50 years old, he still has a tremendous struggle with feeling seen, that he really matters. Now, he is good on stage, has a lot of effect on audiences. They love him, but he can't get enough of it because he still wonders, is anybody really seeing me? Is there anybody who would be with me no matter what? And who can I turn to be soothed? Because if you're in a leadership position, face it, everybody else expects you to soothe them. And we all need that someone to soothe us. Like the beautiful thing you wrote about your wife the other day. What was the last 2 or 3 days? I think I read that.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think for me, that's what it was. And what I found is that, look, all the success in the world, if I don't have someone to soothe me, someone to see me, as you said, you stress out more easily, you lose patience more easily, you're lonely. Right. So you're now contracting. I think it's much harder to succeed. So in some sense, you can succeed to a certain point. Then you hit a ceiling because you don't have the soothing, the love, the presence of someone by your side, and you can't even achieve your own potential. No, it seems to me.
No, as a matter of fact, back in the 1950s and 60s, way before your time, Christian, back in my time, the people who were writing the self-help books, the success books back then, like How to Win Friends and Influence People and The Magic of Thinking Big and all that kind of thing, written back in those days, those guys would often point out that men typically don't really start hitting true success until they're in their 40s. And the reason they said it starts happening, it doesn't typically happen before then, is because of the fact that you're still too drawn by too many different things that are stimulating you. Like, this thing's exciting to me, that thing's exciting to me. And when you finally get to the point in life when you know what's really important to you, such as marriage or feeling good about yourself, having peace inside, relationships, that's when they finally truly become successful, because it's not just counted in money or prestige.
Interesting. Yeah.
Think about it. Even if I'm an entertainer and I'm on stage, I live in Nashville, so I know some people that are very famous here. Okay, if you're the head of a corporation or is an outstanding speaker like you are, then people tend to want you to take care of them. Like, they come to you because they want you to bless them in some knowledge or some attaboy or something. Mm-hmm. And nobody wants to give it to you because they're all expecting it from you.
From you. That's right. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And there's not a person on the planet that's strong. I don't care who he or she is. We all need to have that best friend, or better still, a spouse who is our best friend, that we can talk about with everything and anything, and that we can, as I said earlier, admit our weaknesses. But at the same time, when we get their praise, for lack of a better word, we don't worry about it being insincere, like, well, what are they trying to get from me? What do they want? Because they know us inside and out. They know the good, the bad, and the ugly.
That's
and when
right.
They say, hey, that was good, then we find peace in it because, okay, it probably was, in spite of my flaws.
Buy back your time. That's a big deal, right? Make enough money so that you can have some financial freedom. Operationalize, scale yourself. All of those things are emphasized quite a bit. And then it says, so that you can spend more time with your wife and kids. But the wife and kids, or the husband and kids, don't factor in as the source of success often in the narrative. Family doesn't. And I wonder if is that a thing? Because I don't see it pointed out as a core.
But in my opinion, and it is a core. And if you talk to the counselors and psychologists and therapists out there dealing with people dealing with all kinds of stresses, pains, emotional difficulties, etc., it all comes back to relationships. It's what we're made for. It's a unique person that can exist alone. I mean, it's almost like you have to have a special gifting for it.
Hmm.
And the rest of us, we do need companionship, but not people that just want things from us. We need companionship with somebody who genuinely understands me, knows me, and still cares for me, because I know I'm screwed up. Everybody on the planet's screwed up. And I want somebody who is aware of my being a screw up.
I was so successful and so empty. And then Deb came into my life. And I had to I had to recalibrate even how I see relationships, because I come from 3 generations of broken homes. I really have no framework for success in that field. I had a framework for success in show business. And I was really, really good at it, right? And it took me a little bit of time to recalibrate, because I know I wanted it. I just don't know how to get there, right? And then eventually, when I did get there, I got the help, the coaching, the recalibration, and like my lens, almost like I could see differently. Like I would look at women differently. I would evaluate. I remember I was comparing notes with a friend. He's like, "What's the list of qualities that you're looking for?" And his list did not match my list. And I was like, "I think I'm throwing away my list and I'm adopting your list, because my list sucks." My list got me in too much trouble over and over again. Now I understand a little bit more why. So your list is better than mine. I will adopt it. And so all these learnings came to me. And then by the time I met her, I remember looking in her eyes and going, she doesn't care about the persona. She cares about the person.
There you go.
And that was
Yeah,
it. It was an aha moment, and I was like, I gotta fight for this one. Right. And I literally did. I don't think I've ever been that intentional with any relationship ever that I was with her. And it was the best decision of my life, the best bet of my life, is that she now propelled me, our love, our relationship, our marriage propels me to achieve. It also equips me for overcoming obstacles.
Yes.
She's patient with me with my mistakes. She gets me even if I'm messed up for sure, and I go off to do something that she knows is foolish, and she will tolerate it, right? And then when I'm back, she's like, "Yeah, I told you so," things like that.
Yeah.
And we were on a walk the other day, and I was like, "Hey, what I understand about this year is, and I talked to some people, and people feel like my inner circle that I need to focus. It's my year of focus." And she turns to me and she goes, "You think?" And and it was just this, and I laughed so hard. At first, I was a little hurt. I was like, "I'm giving you a revelation," and then I'm like, "This is just stupid." She knows me inside and out. She's been telling me this for years, and I all of a sudden have an aha moment, and she's like making fun of me. I deserve this, right? Anyway, this is just a long-winded way of saying it's true. It's absolutely core, but I do think that it's not emphasized enough with coaching, with inspiration, with
agree.
self-help,
I agree.
because there's all these other things that are put in front of it.
Yeah.
And why is that? Is this a shift in culture? Is it perception? Is it what? Have we lost our way as a society? What is that?
I think the whole world seems to have lost its way. I've seen the videos of you when you were a rock star, and there were massive audiences you were entertaining. And you're right, you were good at it. I mean, extremely gifted. And that has to be a thrill that most people on the planet would love. Oh, if I could just do that once.
Yeah, exactly.
First of all, if I could just sing, that would help. But if I could get up and I've seen those videos of you in front of masses of people. And yet what I hear you saying right now is, that's fun. And I'm sure it was lucrative and it was very good for the ego. But what I just heard you say, and tell me if I heard it wrong, was, but you wanted to know that somebody actually loved you, not the rock star you.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I couldn't, and to give the audience, if they don't know my context, it was in Eastern Europe. So at the time, there was a whole space of 15 different countries where every girl knew my name, right? They knew who I was. They might have not liked my music, whatever, but they knew. So everybody I would date or be interested in, I knew in the back of my mind, I don't know if the person likes me or the persona or the person, right? And then my wife was in LA at the time. She's American. And on top of that, first of all, she's American. She doesn't care who I am. Second, she worked for years for MTV, VH1, worked with much bigger stars than I was by far, right? So she's not phased. As a matter of fact, me being in show business is probably a red flag for her rather than an attractive thing, right? Because she's seen it all, and she sees me, and to me that was massive. That was a huge deal actually, and that she was interested. I was like, okay, I'm not going to let this one go, basically. So
But
that's
how, when you were 20, being on stage probably was the most important thing to you. Is that right? Or am I guessing wrong?
yeah, oh, absolutely. That's all I lived for. There was an idolatry there, and you're absolutely right. So what you pointed out, right, is for me a big part of wanting to be famous was wanting to be loved and accepted, and the guarantee of that
Yes.
because of the divorce of my parents, because of 3 generations of broken homes,
There
because
you
of
go.
the heartache and heartbreak, I used my talents to guarantee attention and love, but it's not the real thing, It's just not the real thing. And I think that happens with professionals all the time, right? A big part of
Mhm.
our motivation is just off.
Yes, yes. Whether it's being on the radio, whether it's running a business, whether
Yeah.
it's making a speech, whether it's having a lemonade stand, it's still the same thing driving all of that.
Hmm.
Uh, this may sound weird, Christian, and forgive me if I'm way off base, but a friend of mine, Brian Alexander, was the Sexploration columnist for MSNBC. I don't know if he still is, but he was for a long time.
Hmm.
And he wrote a book called America Unzipped, which was
Uh-huh.
about the sexual subculture of America.
Okay.
And so in there, he talks about like sex clubs and swinging and all that kind of stuff. And he interviewed me throughout the book because we were friends. And he said, do you think that people that go to church are looking for the same thing that people who go to sex clubs are looking for? And I said, yes, at core, I think they're looking for the same thing. They're
Wow.
wanting to know if somebody can love them, but they know that they're screwed up.
Oh,
And
wow.
and I think that applies across the board to everything in life you look at. We're all seeking those two major things, love and peace. Can somebody love me, not who they think I am, but the real me, the one I hide behind the wall because I'm afraid they'll reject. And so I paint a picture on their side of the wall, and then they say, wow, you're awesome. And you think, you're not going to know who I really am. You just know who I'm pretending to be. Can you see behind the wall? And behind the wall's a screwed up dude. But can
Yeah.
you love him? Can you be at peace with him? Can you accept the fact that he'll never be perfect? We're all craving that from the cradle to the grave, my friend. And
So
so
how
if
does
we're not teaching that as part of success, I think we're messing up.
Yeah, I agree. And but can we go a little bit deeper on the sex
Sure.
part, because what he was hinting at is really fascinating, because to me on the surface it's hard to bridge sex and something a little bit more extreme, which I think we can be dysfunctional and have multiple partners and not be faithful, but there's a subculture of a subculture of people that go to sex clubs and go to that extreme, right? So explain to me, how does that connect to our desire to be loved? If it's the opposite of, it's really more a frequency and a basically seeking a new pleasure or a variety of pleasures. Is that what it is? And how does that bridge that gap in their mind?
Sometimes we would understand also that there are a lot of people who learn early in life. Now, I'm not saying they learn the proper lesson, but the lesson they learn is that their value is tied to their sexuality. So, say, for example, a young girl develops early, and by the time she's 14, she's gorgeous, and people are wanting to be around her and talk about how beautiful she is. I'm not against that. For example, your daughters are absolutely gorgeous; they're beautiful,
They are, yeah.
but it can get to the point where they start thinking that their value is in that I am a sexual being, and then okay, if that's where my value is, then the more people I have sex with, the more valuable I am. And so we have a whole culture of people that have been reared by that. For example, the number one method of sex education in the world is internet pornography.
Right.
And so if I'm watching that, and those people have all kinds of partners. And so
Hmm.
one of the messages they're teaching me is that if you're really lovable, a lot of different people want to have sex with you. And so that's why they go to exploring all those things, and it never fulfills them because it wasn't meant to be a lot of
You,
different partners.
we were not designed for that, actually.
No, 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 no.
We were not designed for that.
we were designed to have this very close, tight relationship. Well, for a while, I was once a month, I would go on the #1 radio station here in Nashville with Woody and Jim, who are great. Actually, they're comedians. It's awfully fun, by the way, Christian, to have people call and ask you real questions about relationships when you're being helped by two comedians.
Oh, I can imagine. That can only imagine. Yeah. I think I've heard clips of that, actually. Yeah.
It was tons of fun. I mean, those guys are all awesome guys to begin with. But sometimes in the way that people would call in and ask the questions, like, for example, one lady called in on a Wednesday. She said, I'm getting married Saturday. Congratulations. She said, I'm a virgin. Congratulations. She said, so maybe I should go to some club tonight and pick up some guy and have sex so that it won't be that my husband's the only person I've ever had sex with, so I can experience something broader. What do you think? And of course, I'm on a rock and roll station, so I'm going to have to answer in context, or a secular context, if you will. And basically what I said was, if you want to do it, I'm sure you can. But what if this guy turns out to be amazing in bed? And then you marry your husband and you say, he's a virgin too, right? He's probably not going to be so amazing in bed. And now you're going to wind up comparing the two of them. And you know who's going to lose if you pick up some playboy that hangs out, or player, I guess I should say, that hangs out in clubs. Why would you want to ruin that? You see, if you wait till Saturday, then your husband's going to be the best lover you've ever had. And you can teach each other to become more sensual and romantic and sexy. Why would you want to destroy that with somebody else? She saw the wisdom of that. Yeah.
And you know what? I can confirm that from personal experience, living the sort of the rock and roll lifestyle for, quite a few years, is that there's probably, every time I think about my sexual experience, because I honestly didn't have a framework, a moral compass, or any guidance. So I come from a completely amoral sort of, or moral less cultural environment. So I didn't really know, right? But every time, we talk about this with my wife, Deb, honestly, I would have paid years of my life for the opportunity for her to be the only one I've ever knew. Seriously. Like, I do feel that an emotion, I get emotional about that. I'm like, I wish I could not have experienced any of this, because all I want is you. That's all I want. That's the only person I want. And then we sort of joke around and fantasize about it when we see like pictures from like high school or middle school, where I'm like, oh, I would have had such a crush on you if I knew you back then. And it's really cute, right? But my question, I guess, is for people who come from like myself, let's say you're ambitious, you're winning in business, you're winning in whatever, the corporate ladder or private business, you own your business, whatever, or in show business or athleticism, you're like a star, you're getting that outward motivation, and you come from a place of a moral less place, or perhaps a place of wounds, right? And that sometimes are motivating you to actually succeed. You work extra hard. How do you begin to heal? How do you begin to fix that inner game that eventually is going to actually help you succeed even better, even higher and longer in life, if you fix that? What are the steps,
You're not going to forget what you've already done. I mean, right. That's going to be in your mind. I'm a Christian, for example. I know that God can make me innocent, but never to the point where I don't have any memory of what I did. Okay, right. That kind of thing. And so I remember, I'm thinking about right now, a couple I was trying to help. They were 26 years old, and they had married at 21, so they'd been married 5 years. And she said, I just don't want to be with him anymore. And I said, why? And she said, he just doesn't sexually excite me. And so as a sexologist, I asked the question. I said, well, how old were you when you had your first sexual encounter? She said, 16. And you married this guy at 21. She said, yes. I said, that's 5 years. And those 5 years, how many different men did you have sex with? She said, 50, F-I-F-T-Y, 50.
That's a lot, yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot. That would be higher than average. And so I said to look, you have to understand, one guy will never be 50 guys. Those are different shapes and sizes. They're different skill levels. They're different levels of give and take. I mean, all kinds of things. And so if you're going to concentrate just on the physical titillation, then you're never going to be happy with him. But if you start understanding it, this is really a blending of two people into one, not just your bodies becoming one, but your minds, your hearts, your souls. And then that there's a deep peace in it. And so if that's what you can attain, then you can have an amazing sex life with this guy, even with all that history. But it's going to have to be what you understand as being the most important. And by the way, they did it. They worked it out. There's a researcher in Canada, a Christian named Peggy Kleinplatz. Okay. I've read 2 different studies by Dr. Kleinplatz about the difference in good sex and great sex.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's find out.
Well, when you look at and she did 2 different studies with 2 different sets of colleagues. So she published them both in scholarly journals. And if I can summarize it, it goes like this. Great sex is far beyond sex.
Oh,
It's when you can trust a person so much that when you're in the bedroom, you can completely let go because you're not afraid of what they're going to do. They're not going to try to violate your beliefs and values, for example. They're not going to physically cause you harm, et cetera, et cetera. And that if you can be totally open and vulnerable to each other outside the bedroom, where it's like, let me share what I think, what I feel, who I am, what I believe, what I want, what I regret, all those kinds of things. And then take that kind of openness into the bedroom. And so now I'm going to allow myself to feel all the pleasure I possibly can from what my spouse does to me. But at the same time, I'm trying to give her all the pleasure I possibly can. And if she is willing to accept all that, because we're even still talking to each other openly, transparently. I like that. I wish we could do this, et cetera, et cetera. And so really what she talked about was this, and I'm summarizing it, of course, is when you can finally develop a relationship with one person, so that you truly become one emotionally, physically, spiritually, so forth and so on. And that it doesn't make any difference if you're 20 years old or 60 years old, if a hot young body or one like mine, that it can still be this amazing relationship because yes, there's still physical sensation and thank God for that, but it is so much deeper. And so people can completely let themselves go, completely. And interestingly, even though, as far as I know, she has no spiritual aspect to her research, she talks about it being a deeply spiritual experience, very deeply spiritual experience. Mm-hmm. If I may mention that, one of my friends who was a very faithful Christian, back when I was about 35 years old, he was teaching a class of men, and he said, boys, when my wife and I have a particularly good sexual encounter with each other, we both get off the side of the bed on our knees. Oh. And thank God for that privilege. Man. That's fantastic. So just not long before he died, I reminded him of that. I said, 30 years ago, he said, I still believe it. He said, my wife and I, she unfortunately died of cancer before he did, but he said up until 3 months before her death, we were still making love to each other and getting on our knees beside the bed and praying and thanking God for that.
Wow.
That it's amazing. It's not just physical. It's emotional, it's spiritual, it's intellectual, it's all those things together. Now, if I'm sated there, then that's how much more effective I can be at my business or my career. Because the satisfaction I get from having that kind of relationship with a spouse is so fulfilling. And I know I'm never going to be perfect. She isn't either. But that seen, soothed, secure, and that we can be completely enveloped in one another makes it a whole lot easier for me to face things out here because believe it or not, in addition to the psychological effect it has on me, the more orgasms you have, the better able you are to handle stress, believe it or not.
Oh, that's a connection. Yeah. That's a connection.
And interestingly, for men, if you're regularly orgasmic, it reduces the likelihood that you'll have a fatal heart attack.
Interesting.
For women, it reduces the likelihood of having a heart attack, period, if they're regularly orgasmic. So there's all kinds of physical benefits.
Interesting.
But if that part of my body which craves that, and it does, even at my age of 149, it still does. It gives you the ability to be more successful in life because you're not searching for sexual fulfillment. You know what it truly, truly is. and it's there at home. You don't have to go looking for it, and you'll never be perfect, but it can be amazing. And that's why those old guys used to write about the fact it's going to be after you're 40 before you ever become successful.
Wow, that is unbelievable. How that you now that you pointed it out, how much sense it makes. It makes it even more sad how absent that is
Yes.
in the coaching success sort of self-help space.
Yes.
It's just not it's really not promoted as, it's almost like an afterthought. It's almost like you do this and this and this and this, you optimize this and this and this so you can enjoy this. And what I think you and I are saying is that work on this so you can enjoy it, have fulfillment, have sexual fulfillment, relational, so that you can actually succeed in this area, inner game, outer game type stuff.
Absolutely.
That's absolutely fascinating. And even the sexual connection that you said, look, if you're having fulfilling sex, you're going to do better at work because you're less stressed. You're not looking for something at work that you should not be looking for in the first place, right? You know, you're probably a nicer, kinder person, quite frankly, now that I think about it, right? So that's just really, really fascinating. Now, okay, so as we sort of wrap up slowly, I have a couple other things that I want to visit before I'll let you go. The first one is this. I find that many people will listen to this and go, that's what I want. People in 20s, 30s, perhaps, maybe even later, maybe post-divorce even. You've had it, you lost it. Okay, now what? But particularly, I want to focus on maybe people in their mid-20s to mid-30s where you're actually normally looking for something more constant, more permanent, more faithful. And what I find is people don't know how to even find that person in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
I see extremely bright, like off the charts bright people over here not knowing what to do over here. How do you even look, right? That's one. Second, or where do you even look? How do you even go about that? And the second is, how do you discern? How do you discern who to pursue, and that's sort of back to my idea of the list. My list was terrible. So I would discern badly over and over and over again because my criteria was wrong. How do you not fail? How do you not invest a year or two, and then a year or two, and then a year or two? Next thing you know, you're in mid-40s, and you're still lonely, and it's just it's really discouraging. You can be super successful and really unsuccessful at the same time.
Yeah, you may be familiar with the old song by the Eagles, "Wasted Time." That's what you're describing.
Yeah.
Very touching song. The first thing I suggest when I'm talking to people who are not married and want to be, not everybody wants to be, but if you want to be, is that it's easy to find people who will use you, but it's more difficult to find somebody who will love you. And so to keep that in mind, I don't mean to become skeptical and thinking the whole world's bad, but just be aware that that's reality. Another thing is to remember that the kind of fish you catch is determined by the pond in which you fish. So if I'm going to bars to pick up people, then I may not be finding the person that's the right person for me, unless that's the lifestyle I want to live the rest of my life, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we say, okay, there are all kinds of opportunities and places to meet people. There are people everywhere. About half of the adult population of America is single. Mm-hmm. Almost half. So there are tons of them. And so then, okay, all right. So if we're running into people where I would love to say that, maybe the church group's got good people, but that's not always true. Often it is. And there are awesome people there. And there might be people who are at work with you who are good people, etc. Okay. Number one, if they aren't in a relationship with someone else, don't interrupt that. Because if you can persuade that person to leave that relationship, whether it's boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, or wife, for you, it may happen again when they leave you for somebody else. So look for somebody who truly is free. And then I would recommend write down your deal breakers. Now, not just this is everything I want. He's got to be exactly 6'3". He's got to have six-pack on his abs. Those are really pretty superficial. I know.
Yeah.
Physical view. I mean, you look at Christian and say, I want somebody who looks like him. I don't want somebody who looks like Joe. I get it. I understand that.
It's all subjective. Yeah.
But looks change.
They do.
They always will. They always will. And so what are you looking for? Honesty. integrity. See, if I'm talking to singles, I say, here's what you need to do. When you have your conversations, when you're dating, don't just talk about the weather or the football team. Start talking about, what do you believe? Not maybe the first date, that'd be a little off-putting, but what do you believe, and how do you see that being applied to life? Because if you can find somebody with very similar beliefs and values to yours, particularly when it comes to things about integrity, honesty, faithfulness, those kinds of things, and somebody who is not so absorbed in himself or herself that that you're just kind of a side thing over here. Those people exist, even among divorced people. Kristen, as you know, I work with people in marriage crisis every day. That's what I do for a living.
Yep.
And there's some really good people out there now who are divorced because their spouse went off and did something where that they couldn't save the marriage. In other words, good people who tried everything they could to save the marriage, but the spouse was enamored of somebody else, or you know what I'm talking about. And so I wouldn't say rule out all the divorced people. There's some divorced people out there who are really, really good people who didn't screw up their marriages. Now, I'm not saying they're perfect, because none of those people exist. But their spouse, for whatever reason, got tempted or lured away by something else. And this is still a good person here, even though he or she has been married before. You're looking for that integrity. So beliefs and values. What do you believe to be true? Now, how do you see that apply to life? That's what values are. And then that works beautifully in being able to find the right person once you know who you want to date. And that's where the discernment, in my opinion, comes from, Christian.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think for me, from my standpoint, getting discernment from people who have discerned well shapes your discernment. That was my practice. I literally spied out, like couples that I loved and admired. I would hang out with them. Like I would be a third wheel. Seriously, it was probably weird, right, for them. But I was like, I'm just sitting around. I'm going to invite myself over for dinner and ask you, how'd you meet? How'd you know she was the one? All those, because I wanted to. I just didn't want. Didn't want the pain of discerning badly over and over again, right? And I wanted to figure it out. So, so for whatever it's worth for anyone in the audience. Okay, so now let's say we met somebody, we married someone, life comes at you hard, right? There are always valleys in a marriage.
Always.
What would you say your top 3 factors are to keep a marriage? And we'll talk. What I want to sort of land this with a little bit, because you do amazing, brilliant work in saving marriages, right? So before you have to save a marriage, let's say you're somewhere in the middle where you hit your 7-year itch. That's what they say. I don't know if it's a real thing or not, but let's say hypothetically it is. What are some of the shifts, know-hows, things that people can take away from our conversation here?
There's a researcher out in on the West Coast, Dr. John Gottman, who's considered the guru when it comes to relationship research. And in one of his books, it's actually a book called The Marriage Clinic, if somebody wants to buy it. I don't know why you would, because it's dull as dirt. It's written for people who work with marriages, so it's dull. You understand?
That's right. Yeah. It's
Like
for professionals, yeah.
Exactly. But in there, he looked at a bunch of different research projects about what motivated people to divorce. And when he summarized those, which is what's called a literature review, when he summarized those, he said, most of the time, what will motivate a person to want out of a relationship is, I do not feel that you love me, or I do not feel that you like me, or I do not feel that you respect me. Now, notice it's not measuring whether the other spouse does love, like, or respect you. It's whether or not you're communicating that where the other person feels it. And so we say, if you continually know how to communicate love where the other person feels loved, which you'll never do perfectly, and to actually like the other person, even though some days you won't like them at all, but some days you don't like you at all.
Yep, absolutely.
But that you can respect them, and particularly when they don't think like you think or believe like you believe, but you can respect each other to work those things out anyway. If those 3 things happen, it's extremely rare for a divorce to occur. If each one feels loved, liked, and respected.
That's golden right there. Golden. Pay attention if you're listening to this and you're going through a marriage, valley, right? So, okay, so let's talk about, I don't think I can do this, right? Or I don't think she can do this.
We have over 1,000 videos
Oh,
for
I
free
know that. Oh,
on YouTube.
amazing.
Okay.
Amazing.
And on our website, a lot more information. Marriage Helper, Marriage Help ER,
Yeah.
marriagehelper.com.
.com. Okay.
And on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/marriage helper, marriage help
Marriage
ER.
helper.
In our workshops, and we do workshops all the time. I was telling Kirsten earlier that sometimes we have 3 going at the same time.
At the same time, yes, that's right. When people come to you, and by the way, please look up the website, because Joe has incredible results. Incredible results. I don't think I've ever seen anything or heard of anything with a higher percentage of saved marriages. What is the key there when people show up? And obviously, it's different when they show up. There's a immersive experience. I understand that. But what is the why behind this high rate of saved marriages in your workshops?
Well, let me start one step before that. About 90% of the couples that come in, one spouse does not want to be in the workshop.
Okay.
And they're only there because the other one offered them something. Like, I'll give you the dog in the divorce or something.
Wow.
And we always tell them, don't offer something you're going to get mad at yourself later if you have to give it up, because we cannot guarantee you. But they'll make some kind of a deal, like, I'll go ahead and sign the divorce papers. If 2 weeks after the workshop you still want a divorce, I'll sign the papers. In other words, whatever is important to them that you're willing to give. So picture that. About 90% of the people that walk in the door, one of them doesn't want to be there. Okay. And so what we do is we just basically teach about relationships. We don't twist their arms to stay married. We don't preach at them that they're sinning. We don't do any of that kind of thing. We just say, let us show you what good relationships are like. Let us show you how they fall apart. And it's amazing, Christian, how many times they'll find their story in those 3 days. Like, oh, that's us.
Wow.
And it's so cool. Now, again, about a fourth of them still go ahead and divorce. But we consider those pretty good odds that about 3 out of 4 actually work it out.
I mean, if most of them come and one of them doesn't even want to be there in the first place, that's it. Yeah. This is essentially, most people that come to you are on, this is the last shot. This is the last attempt.
Hear that all the time.
And then 3 out of 4 stay married.
Yeah. We treat them with respect and dignity. We don't pressure anybody. We just teach. And we teach from social science research, like, here's what this research is, but we make it very practical, and people start seeing themselves in those stories. Like, one time I remember, this has happened more than once, but I just remember this specific one. This guy told his wife he would come if she would sign the divorce papers at the end of the workshop. So that he had the divorce papers with him. And at the end of the workshop, he said, may I say something? And he walked up to the front and ripped them up, threw them in the trash can. And that's the kind of thing we witness all the time. And it doesn't mean everything is perfect suddenly. They've still got some work to do.
Of course, yeah.
But changing that mindset and working it out, it's fun to watch that happen.
Oh,
particularly when, I believe in the power of God, so I don't think it's Joe. One of my psychiatrist friends said, Joe, I know that the stuff that you have must have come from God. And I said, really? How do you know? He said, you're just not that smart, Joe.
That's exactly it. That's how I feel about my coaching program, is that, the framework, I tell people all the time, like, it's not about me. I promise you, it's not about me. It's the framework. It just works.
Yes.
And it really does. And, I basically, what I do is I combine scripture and science, right? Because they echo each other so well. And as you do, I based a lot of my stuff on the Harvard study, the longest longitude, the Harvard study on human flourishing, all that stuff, where these dimensions are mentioned. And by the way, if you're in a crisis, please go to Joe. Seriously, if you want to learn more, please go to the website. On the YouTube channel, there's all kinds of free stuff. If you want to succeed and have marriage and family be integral to your success, check out Xponential.life, because that's a core thing that we explore and coach in and integrate, because I believe it's your inner game will not only it will extend your success in length, it will heighten your success in just how much you achieve. And it's marriage, love, relationships, friendships are core, absolutely core.
So do you work with people individually or in groups, or how does your thing work?
Oh, thanks for asking. It's basically both. It's a hybrid It's a hybrid model where there's a cohort and one-on-one. And I find that to be the most the most well researched. It's actually well researched that that model is highly effective, because you work in a group, you sort of bounce off each other, you answer somebody else's question. People actually help each other in the group, and then I'm there sort of to guide them and to sort of coach as well. But the framework is the big thing. It's the winner, right? It's not even about me at all. Just like, as you said, it's remarkable to observe that. If you are a purpose-driven professional ready to build an extraordinary life, my Xponential coaching program gives you the skills and habits to overcome obstacles and create that new future. You'll learn to turn stress into creativity, gain clarity, accelerate your progress, and disarm those internal roadblocks for lasting success. You can visit Xponential.life today to learn more, see how our clients are thriving, and claim a free strategy call before spots fill out. I love coaching because I was coached where my success outgrew my ability to sustain it. That's the origin story for me, right? That's the genesis. And when I was coached, my inner game, my ability to sustain it, caught up with my talent and my abilities. Wonderful. And then it propelled me forward, and I've done so much more because of Deb and my marriage to her and my girls, so much more that I could ever ask or imagined. There's no way I could have done any of those things on talent or skill alone. There's no way. And I really deeply believe that.
Makes sense to me, buddy.
Yeah, and if and the coaching part is that what coaching does, and exactly what you do in your workshops, is it accelerates things. Like it can take you 5 years to get there, or it can take you a month to get there, or it can take you 3 weeks to get there. What do you prefer?
Yeah.
So
how long do you want to hurt?
Yeah. How long do you want to hurt? Right. Somebody taught me about this principle of the ignorance tax. Have you heard of that?
No.
Yeah, it's really amazing. Like, somebody was telling me, the example is like, look, if you want to make $1 million, how much do you make now? Let's say 100,000, just for a round number. You want to make $1 million a year. Okay, good. So you're paying 900,000 a year in ignorance tax by not learning it quicker.
I love that.
Right.
I love that.
So, but it's the same thing with marriage. Like, for me, I was romantically active, let's put it that way, for a decade before I actually learned. What would I give to shorten that to a year instead of a decade? That's the ignorance task, and it's heavy and it's painful, and sometimes it has consequences that go forever. So, so get help.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah. It's you can use that, right? Because it totally translates. It totally translates.
It does translate. I'm going to make some videos Thursday. I'm going to use that concept.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Ignorance task. Yeah. How many hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees? How many dysfunctional moments? How much pain? Kids, unhappy kids. Traumatized kids, like I'm one of them, right? All of those things in a marriage, all of those things, that's the ignorance cost. Shorten the ignorance cost, pay the tax, pay the coaching, pay the workshop, don't pay the cost and the tax. It's completely sideways energy, right?
I absolutely love that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, thank you, Joe. This was fantastic, and as I said, I always love hanging out with you.
Oh, you're one of the neatest guys on the planet. I love interacting with you. I really do. I want to be this close to rock and roll royalty. That makes
there you go. There you go. All right. So I'm going to wrap it up. But thank you guys again. Joe, can you repeat the website again in case people missed it?
www.marriagehelper, like marriage helper, marriagehelper.com.
Joe, again, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.